excited to say that one of our newest members, Greg Schenk, who actually spoke to us, if you guys may remember, almost 10 years ago, back in 2010, and but probably most of you don't remember Greg's background, so I'll give you a couple highlights. Started out very entrepreneurial, selling lollipops when he was young to be able to go to summer camp. I think that was, what, 5th grade, Greg? And then he got into golf, and he was a golf caddy from 5th grade all the way through high school. And anybody familiar with the Evans Scholarship Program? All right, so a lot of golfers I see and folks that understand that. So that's basically a fabulous program. I looked it up. I wanted to see what the criteria was. Strong caddy record, excellent academic, showed a financial need, but the biggest one I think is outstanding character, and that's the thing that I know about Greg. Got bit by the commercial real estate bug back in around 26, and then by the time he was in his mid-30s, he was really doing a lot of different things, from being a broker, an advisor, investor, and has spent a lot of time traveling the country. He was sharing with me, he just got back from Orlando, down there talking about commercial real estate. He loves learning about and talking about and sharing his ideas and tips and information he learns from around the country. So I'm excited to hear about what's happening in Columbus in our backyard and how we're better investors. I got a couple of questions. How many of you own your own building? Anybody? We got a few. How many people invest in commercial real estate? All right, we got a few more. So I think you got an interesting audience. So help me welcome Greg Schenk to the stage.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm going to walk all around today so I can put every one of you on the spot and get your questions answered. 1986, I took the risk of a lifetime. Before I want to say that, I want to make this the most interesting half hour of your year. So please, any question is good as far as commercial real estate goes. In 1986, I took the risk of a lifetime. I'm living on the beach in Southern California, working on my tan, riding my bike up and down the beach with a great sales job, company car, expense account, but something was missing. I grew up outside of Toledo. I fly back for a friend's wedding, drive down to Columbus, and I have a gut feel Columbus is going to explode. So without one bit of commercial real estate knowledge, didn't even ever heard of the phrase before, I left this job, moved back here, straight commission. The company I went to work for didn't even pay to move me back. And I said, I'm going to get into commercial real estate because I think this city's going to go boom. I did two things. I set a very high written goal. And I said, I'll give it 2 years. And if it doesn't work, back to the beach. Within 2 years, I knew I'd made the right decision. I was killing it. 9 years later, I did the biggest deal in the state with what was then Bank One, now Chase, helping them get their financial card services in order. And that really set me on my next goal for the lifetime, which was to get rid of outside of corporate America and open my own shingle. And this people said the same thing when I left California. Said, there, you're leaving the biggest company with the greatest reputation in the world to go out on your own? What are you, crazy? Are you a nut? Same thing. Set a high goal in writing, gave it 2 years. I said, if not, I can always change. Within 2 years, I was killing it. At the same time, I developed 2 courses for continuing education because I thought real estate education in the industry and in general to the public was very poor. So I started studying the market 3 to 4 hours a day and traveling the world speaking and teaching about the commercial real estate market. So this year marks my 34th year of being in the business, 25th year of speaking around the country, and 20 years of investing around the country. So what I want to do today is give you, since we only have a half hour, a really brief overview of what's going on, but more importantly, what does it mean to your business? What does it mean to you and your bottom line? So first of all, the why is the biggest question. Why is commercial real estate important to all of you? We've got a gentleman here that's in a college campus that just got telling us buildings are going up astronomically in price. And that's the biggest factor we're seeing on every real estate area today, is the cost to build something out is much higher than it used to be. I'm very proud to say I just helped the division of the Supreme Court, the state of Ohio, for the 3rd time in 20 years. And let me tell you, if you can make the Supreme Court happy, you can make anybody happy. Their build-out was so high that we had to negotiate probably better than we've ever done before to get them what's called a turnkey solution, because they didn't have any money to finish the build-out. So we got them almost $700,000. That's what it costs to build out their space when they move into it this July. That building, the Capitol Square building, which happens to be a building I used to have my offices in back in the late 80s, the rental rate is actually lower now than it was in the 80s and 90s. Why? Because when the market crashed, a lot of these buildings went back to their lenders. The new people that picked it up bought it for a much lower cost, so they then could have the dollars to help people to build out the space. So if there's one thing you get today, you need to know there's 4 factors that every landlord looks at. So who's a tenant here? I saw Chip have people raise their hand. Who's a tenant in the building today? A few of you? Okay, so if you are, or you work with a company of ours, there's 4 factors that are going to really dictate everything. The credit of the tenant. If that landlord's going to spend a dime, they need to know that your credit's really good. The second factor is the length of term of the lease, which could be 3, 5, 7, 10, 15 years. So this lease we just did with the Supreme Court division was a 15-year lease to be able to cover those costs and get the landlord to write that large check. The next is the amount of space. If it's a small tenant, they're not going to get the same terms as they are for a large tenant. And the fourth is the cost of that build-out. Today, an office tenant build-out could easily be between $50 and $70 a square foot, which is a hell of a lot of money. Okay, so even a small tenant, 5,000 feet, we're talking about $250,000. So the biggest problem I see, and I'm having helped over 900 clients in my career, is nobody has a strategic plan. Very few companies do. Why is that? We have a great work ethic here in Central Ohio, probably better than most, and that's probably a big reason I'm here, because our economy's done good through thick and thin. But our people are too busy working in the business instead of taking a step back and working on the business. The companies that have strategic plan are the ones you see in the Business First Fast 50 list, repeatedly. The ones that don't are the ones that are too busy putting out fires. Every day they're aimlessly wandering, just taking what their business throws at them instead of planning. So unfortunately, too many people come to me at the last minute and say, well, my lease is up and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I got a notice from my landlord and he's raising the rates $2 a foot. So before the industrial market went crazy, I went to every one of my industrial clients and said, look, the market's tightening up. You need to renew early now or you're going to get hit. How many of them renewed early? None. How many got hit with 6-figure increases? Every one of them. So having a strategic plan is paramount to your business, and each and every one of your bottom line would improve if you have one. Who do you need to have in the strategic plan? What I call trusted advisors that many people don't have. Number one is a good real estate attorney, not a general attorney. Somebody that really knows the ins and outs and the language. So for example, I negotiate the business terms and conditions. A real estate attorney is going to cross those T's, dot that I's, and get that right language in there to protect you from the ups and downs of everything that could happen. Somebody dies, somebody gets divorced, a partnership breaks up, whatever the case may be. You want to merge, you want to buy out another company. You need to be protected. And if I told you how many people aren't protected or have the wrong kind of an attorney that's not an expert in that area do it, you'd be amazed. The next is an accountant that really knows real estate. Today we have something called opportunity zones that each and every one of us here in this room could participate in and earn money, both as an investor as well as in our offices, that can help us. We need to have an accountants that know that. If they don't, they need to get knowledge of it. I've gone to 3 seminars alone this year within the last 60 days on it because it's really going places, okay? The next is a commercial banker, not a general banker. If you're going to take a loan, if you're going to restructure a loan, if you're going to borrow money to do a build out, you need to have somebody that knows it and speaks the lingo. Really, really important. So attorney, accountant, a banker, and then there's a couple of others that are really important. Financial, your finance person could be your stockbroker, financial planner, an insurance person to get the right language. How many different tsunamis and floods and this, that, and the other have we had around this country? Wildfires. If you don't have the right insurance provisions in your lease, you're really SOL. I look at myself as the quarterback of the process to make sure that goes smoothly. So you could literally change your whole life and change your whole business in commercial real estate now having those things, okay? Questions about that? Hopefully that's clear. It'll really change you a lot. So going over that, we track every property in the market in 4 different areas. Office, industrial, retail, apartments, also on a lesser amount, land, self-storage, and hotels. I own partnerships in many different types of properties around the country, so I can tell you that I've seen it here, there, and everywhere. I've been in 14 states in the last 12 calendar months. I just got back from Florida. There's not one market I haven't seen that isn't the best it's ever been. The best it's ever been since I've been alive. That's a good sign. Low unemployment, cranes everywhere. I mean everywhere. So I grew up in a little town called Sylvania outside of Toledo. My best friend's family owned a Mercedes and an Audi dealership. The last 2 years, their average price car is $68,000, has been their best 2 years in a 70-year history for that dealership. So if people are buying $68,000 cars in blue-collar Toledo, Ohio, you know the darn economy's right, and ours just blows it away. There's not one part of town in central Ohio that something isn't going on. Places that you used to consider the hood or that you wouldn't go there after dark are now just printing money, and it's just going incredible. I established a memorial fund at Children's Hospital about 20 years ago. I lost a brother to cancer, and I've spent a lot of time over there and gone through the areas. I took my mom on a trip 10 years ago to look at the houses around there, and there was homeless people everywhere. There'd been one nice house and 9 boarded up houses. Now, $350,000, $400,000. And you go next door to Old Town East, $500,000 houses. Are you kidding me? If I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. You could have bought those for a song. So I'm seeing so many people that never knew about real estate, never thought about buying real estate, that are either doing a fix and flip, or they're doing a partnership, or they're buying apartments, and that kind of leads and segues me into my next question. We've got, I know, some stockbrokers and financial planners in the audience. Most people don't study real estate. They're studying stocks and bonds and mutual funds of that matter. But I'm here to tell you that if you're not, have something in one of those, you're really missing out on a good chance to become financially secure and get passive income for the rest of your life. And I'm living proof. I grew up with absolutely nothing. At 21, I didn't have a dime to my name. I didn't own a sport coat. I didn't have a nice pair of shoes. I didn't have a car. I had zero. I had a good work ethic. I had a yearn to learn. And that's what I've done since I've come here. Met a lot of people, shook a lot of hands, got involved with 5 different charity organizations, great people like you guys that are here, and I saw it. So what you can do is, number one, everybody's got a different risk tolerance in life. What's going to let you sleep at night? What's going to keep you up at night? You may be a 2, very conservative. You may be a 10, very risky. So first thing you need to do is find out what is your risk tolerance in life. The second, how much capital are you comfortable putting into an investment? And how long are you comfortable putting it into that investment? The next thing you need to know really up front is, what is your exit strategy? When do you need that money back? If you've got kids going to college in 15 years and you know, I'm going to need how much? $250,000? Whatever the case may be, you want to know at that specific time you're going to be able to get those funds back. So we have 2 forms on our website, and I did not bring a lot of PowerPoint today because I wanted to be able to answer your questions and not just go over that with you. But we have 2 forms, one for tenants and one investors, that you can go on that kind of gives you a step-by-step to go through the who, what, why, when, and where. But what's really important is getting you comfortable that buying a commercial real estate investment property is just like buying a stock. I've got property I've never set foot in, never seen things. I trust the people I'm in around. What I will tell you up front is, if you do try to do this on your own, don't ever manage it yourself. Ever, ever, ever. And I can tell you from personal experience, about 20 years ago when I tried for somebody that's not handy and didn't want to deal with calls at 2 in the morning from whatever happening, you can pay somebody a heck of a lot less than what your time's worth. So in my business, being on straight commission for 34 years, time is money. Everything, I'm an efficiency expert. I don't let people waste 1 minute of my time, nor do I waste 1 minute of theirs. So when you're going into things like that, you got to think in your life, what is my time worth? If you think your time's worth $30 an hour, it is. If you think your time's worth $300 an hour, it is. If you think your time's worth $3,000 an hour, it is. We're the only ones that hold ourselves back. Why is it important to do this today? We've got investors now from all over the world looking at Columbus, Ohio. So getting money, getting a partnership to do something is the easiest thing ever. I've got two young guys, barely 30 years old, that are making well over $250,000 a year, buying fix and flips, buying small apartment buildings. One's got his own interior decorator. One's got somebody he has cold calling, spending $100,000 a year to dig up owners of small apartment complexes to do it. So the sky is the limit for you out there to do it. So the question is, do you want to do it? What's your risk tolerance? How much do you have to invest? How much are you comfortable investing? How long would you keep it in the investment? What's an expected return? Well, that's going to really vary by what kind of property type, where it is, what's the credit of the tenant, and how long are those leases that those tenants have. Okay? So my friends in California may be getting a 3.5% return. Same thing with New York. That's why everybody's looking at the Midwest, the secondary and the tertiary markets. I read a half a dozen different magazines this weekend when I was on the plane and in the airport waiting, just to try to give you guys the most up-to-date info of what's going on. A lot of people think the market will slow a little bit this year, depending on the property type. I don't see it. I'm as busy as I've ever been. I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if I wanted to. I'm up almost every day before 5 o'clock, reading 2 or 3 hours, trying to keep up on the data and the information that's going there. As I said, no matter what part of town you live here, you can live 30 miles each direction, something is going on, okay? I've lived in Upper Arlington for 30 plus years. We got people selling lots there for over $500,000. It just blow my mind that small little lots could be that much. I drive my son by every day and say, do you know what that house just sold for? So it's just really crazy. I grew up in a house that was $14,000. You couldn't get a garage now for $14,000. All right, I've been talking too much. Who's got the first question? Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk more about being an efficiency expert?
Okay, so when I look at a company, I look at where have they been, where are they now, and where do they want to go. So most companies aimlessly wander and don't have a strategic plan. On our website, we've got a form to help you fill that out. How big do you need to be? Your image, your access, your visibility, your employee count. How many employees do you have now? How many do you see yourself being 3, 5, 7 years down the road? I can get you the greatest space in the world, but if a year later you merge with another company and you don't have the ability to expand, you're really going to be in trouble. And unfortunately, too many people today don't have a plan. So you need to start, if you're a small company, 6 to 8 months or maybe a year before your lease expired. This project we just did with the Disciplinary Council of the Supreme Court, we started 2 years early. You can sign a 5-year lease and 6 months later restructure that lease. No different than you've refinanced your house probably twice in the last 3 years because the rates are so cheap. And if you haven't refinanced your house, I saw a 15-year deal the other day for 2.5 or 2.6%. Do we have any bankers in the room? 2.6%? Are you kidding me? Hello? So money is stealing now. My first deal I did was 17% interest rate. I had a money market when I moved to town with a few measly dollars I had at 14%. So plan early, have a copy of your lease. If you haven't looked at your lease, you sit down with someone like me and your real estate attorney and you see the good parts and the bad parts. And I guarantee you there's a lot of bad parts. We have a 44-point checklist that we do in each person's lease. And there's usually a half a dozen clauses that people get screwed on because they haven't had someone like me to help them. In 1989, the state of Ohio enacted a law called the Agency Disclosure Law. Before that, it was let buyer beware. So when that law happened, I basically did listings for about 3 years, and I moved all of my business over to strictly representing tenants, buyers, and investors. And I'm proud to say I'm the only one in Central Ohio that exclusively does that. And I've bounded together with people all over the world. I've got about 307 affiliates in almost any city and country you can imagine, including Guatemala, including Spain, you name it. We've got people there, and I travel, and I'm speaking with these people, and I'm helping them. So as your companies grow outside of Columbus, outside of Ohio, outside the Midwest, outside the U.S., we try to look at those trends and how they're going to affect us here. Okay? So we're doing some things incredible. We're doing some other things awful, and obviously it's up to us to stand up as leaders and change those things. Who's next? Yes, George.
Yeah, two things. One is, as a new member, I wanted to make sure I thanked you in front of everyone for immediately jumping on a committee, and you're on the Peace Builders, and you've already made a difference, so thank you for that. Second question, enjoying your talk and very informative. As an instructor, do you have any seminars coming up in town, or maybe there's a group that can, drill down into some of the specifics?
Yes, it's almost impossible, obviously, to do it in 30 minutes. We usually do 1, 3, or 8-hour classes to answer a question. I do one-on-one coaching. One of my charities that I took it on myself to do is financial literacy. I don't want to, number one, see anybody in pain and need. And having lost a brother to cancer at 15, it struck our family and really developed a wallop. So that's always been something on my forefront. Being a single parent of a 16-year-old son, I wanted him to learn early. Don't have your hand out, get a work ethic, figure out what you're passionate about in life, and go do it, all right? And we can do that, especially in Columbus with 0% unemployment on there. So to answer your question, we're doing this basically again for the Westerville Rotary, April 23rd, but we will schedule, we just did one for the Ohio State Bar Association on investments. You could log into theirs. It's a webinar that, I don't know what the charge is to do it for if you're not a member of there, but we do seminars, webinars, and one-on-one coaching in about 25 different areas of commercial real estate and real estate acquisition, investment acquisition. We do it for both residential and commercial realtors, as well as any kind of professionals. We've done them for Ohio Society of CPAs, Columbus Bar, Toledo Bar, Ohio State Bar, and 23 or 4 states I spoke. Callaway, do you have a question?
We've got 2 questions. A handful of us here in Rotary have had the pleasure of knowing Greg for another club we've been in for many years. So I've got 2 tough questions. You decide which was tougher. Take first or second. How's Buckeye football team going to be next year? That's the club that we're in, the Ohio State Quarterback Club. Bob Lash, John Mariotti, George Kuhn. The second one is, how does Sam Zell know when to sell and when to buy? And you can tell them who Sam Zell is.
Okay, so the first one, I'm about a 40-year diehard Buckeye fan. I don't think I've missed 10 games in 40 years. Okay, and I was a basketball player. I was not a football player, but I may be more passionate about football with my Buckeyes, and I will be in Oregon for the best away game we're going to have this year for that, as I see more of the country that I haven't spent a whole lot of time in. I think we're going to run the table and win it. Our schedule's really lame, really weak, very weak home schedule, and I like who we got good coming back. I like Fields a great deal. So yes, we're a member of the quarterback club, so we hear the coaches talk every week, and I will say Ryan Day's disposition is one of the best of any human being I've ever met, ever. He just has got it down right. He's a very humble guy. You'd never know. And he's got just that right amount of tweak to keep the players motivated in that. Secondly, Sam Zell, his nickname's the Gravedigger, as he pulls things out of the ground that nobody ever thought would do good, like mobile home parks that most people would drive by and like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, and he was making 25% returns forever. So there's a lot of Sam Zells in this world. I don't know that I aspire to be a Sam Zell, but I read and I keep my finger on the pulse and I'm doing deals. So the number one is being active. Not many people want to spend $10,000, $12,000 a year to go to every damn seminar around the country to be with other professionals and learn. That's what it takes. So when I'm up at 4:30 in the morning reading because I can't sleep, I might as well do something productive, and I am doing something productive. So that's a big part of it. How much risk do you want to take in your life, okay? Most people don't. A lot of it, what was your parents like? Were you a saver or were you a spender? Did your mom and dad tell you to save, or were they all blowing every dime, okay? My parents are divorced. My mom was scared to death. She grew up in the Depression. Her dad died in 8th grade, so everything was don't spend a dime, save, 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 save. I bought a car the day I turned 16, a real junker, didn't even have an FM radio in it. So my whole goal in life was to have an FM cassette stereo in my car. I think it was $230, and my mom said, oh, don't buy that, it's too much money, you won't have the car that long. 5 years later, I graduated college. I think it broke down the week I graduated. Never had an FM radio in it. So I'm a saver. For a guy that's been on straight commission, I didn't grow up being a risk taker, and now I'm in a very risky job. But if, it depends on your goals in life. And there's no right or wrong answer, yes or no. It's what's important to you and your family. And most people never have the money talk. okay? So I was turned on and I studied every great leader there was about that, of how to get from here to here and here to here. And I tell you, I had a goal. First of all, my doctor kind of slapped me across the face about 5 years ago, and he goes, quit drinking too much, quit eating too much pizza, quit going to Mexican restaurants and having a pitcher of margaritas every Friday night. I said, oh, okay. Took me a while for that to soak in, but since then, I'm healthier than I've ever been, and I set a goal to take 50 trips around the world in 5 years. I'm on number 62 now in 5.5. So for a guy that started with totally nothing, it's very fulfilling to be able to know you can do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. That's my goal. Yes, sir.
Greg, I'm really intrigued by your passion, really connected to it. And I enjoyed what you said to your son when you're teaching him. I'd like to know, as you come into Rotary, how you can align your passion and purpose with service, especially when you have all these, connections around the world. Could you speak a little bit about what you see?
So thank you. Did everybody hear that question? How am I going to connect with what I'm doing with my passion to help out others? My goal is to speak at all the different Rotary clubs around the world to help them. My goal is to make sure every child is financially literate, because if they don't learn it at home, they got to learn it from somebody. So for example, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, one of the best books ever, I had my son read it at 13. He's got 4 different books. Boom. That either will flip a light switch or not. You either get it or you don't. There's opportunities out there for us all. It's not going to be handed to us. It's going to be hard work. But guess what? It's out there, and you can do it if you want it bad enough. That's the biggest thing. So for Columbus, best market it's ever been. Maybe the most expensive in some areas. The Short North, the Arena District, and Easton are really expensive. So most of my clients are privately held companies. I'm fortunate that 100% of my business is referred or introduced from me from a lot of people that know me or hear me speak. So most of my clients don't want to spend $35 to go to an Arena District or a Short North. And I've had many that may have wanted to that have had champagne taste and beer budgets. But most of them, I help put a strategic plan together for, or help implement that plan to not only help for today, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Yes, sir.
You said there's something good happening in every part of town. A lot of people aren't aware of the Crosswoods and Bush Corporate Center and Hunter are all opportunity zones. Other than that, what good is going on in those?
Okay, so the question was, what's good going on in Crosswoods and Bush Boulevard in that area? So, number one, that area is very prideful to me, because at 1111 Schrock Road is where I put Bank One to help them with their financial card services. So that pretty much set me on my way to financial independence. So the reason Campus View and Crosswoods went down, really down the tubes hard, was the 23270 project took forever, and it still hasn't improved the area that much, unfortunately, in my opinion, my humble opinion. I drive a lot. So a lot of tenants in those buildings went to Polaris. All right, so there were some unbelievable opportunities, again, with people with goals. One developer from Detroit bought 2 buildings there for $35 a foot when you couldn't build them for $135 a foot. So he has since been able to do lease transactions at a much lower rate and have money to put tenants in. So I've actually put 3 tenants in those buildings in the last 12 months because the rental rates are that much lower, maybe $4 or $5 a foot lower than some surrounding buildings. So the big thing everybody in here needs to get over with is traffic is coming if it's not already here. And ours is nothing compared to other big cities, nothing. Go try to drive in Miami or Philadelphia or LA. I've spent significant time in cities that are nothing, okay, on there. The opportunity zones that most people here are probably not aware of, I've asked 100 times, who's picking these things? I looked at a hotel to buy in a partnership in Fort Lauderdale in the Las Olas area, which may be the best area of Fort Lauderdale, and right next to it was an opportunity zone. So I'm not an accountant, I'm not going to get into it, but let's just say you can make very good returns with postponing your gains by investing in these things, okay? So we've got some opportunity zones, and it's too bad Mr. Weiler's not here today because one of his projects going on right now on Olentangy River Road is in an opportunity zone. So it is an area that for people that weren't going to invest in areas around the country to incentivize them to do it, and it's happening, it's working. So a building just got sold in the Bush area, Other properties are getting sold in there. I have not done one myself, but I will tell you that about 80% of my clients don't buy anymore, they lease. Why? They don't take the time to do a strategic plan, or the properties that are out there are too expensive. Building today, I almost always say last resort, because the cost of new construction, especially medical, for my medical clients, it's very, very difficult. It's that expensive. So hopefully that answers your question on that. Ken, my dear friend Ken, is who really told me to come into this group. Thank you, Ken.
We build for resale. What are your best examples of a white elephant? Somebody who didn't build for resale, and then what is your best example of somebody who did? And I don't need names, just a description.
Okay, so the question was building for resale or building on spec, you mean, without a tenant?
No, just building something that nobody would buy, a white elephant.
Well, I haven't seen too many white elephants in Columbus. One of the best things about Columbus is we never overbuilt to the extent that a lot of other cities did, okay? So a lot of other cities, when the market crashed much worse than ours. But for example, when I was down in Orlando, there was a 15-story building that's been not completely finished for over 10 years that some religious group had built and not finished. So I haven't seen that many white elephants. Today, you could almost say that with retail malls. We see at Tuttle that a guy put a entertainment, for lack of a better terms, amusement park for kids in one of the empty Macy's that he bought. So even though Amazon is dominating the retail presence online business, it still only represents 9%. So you're going to see some malls that are redone into fitness facilities and hospitals, and maybe even put housing in them. That area can be the biggest thing that I'd be concerned about, but we're not really over-malled. I mean, Westland's sat empty now for what, 20 years. Eastland's a shell, of itself. City Center is obviously long gone, which I had a lot of good memories, being there. Okay, yes?
If the market in Central Ohio is so strong, why do we have to, why is there a feeling or a need or a desire on behalf of City Council to give the developer a 20-year abatement?
Great question. Everybody hear that? Why is there a need for City Hall to give a developer a 20-year abatement? It's a very fine line. Would that happen without it? I'm going to tell you it probably would. So my personal opinion, there's a lot of incentives. So I know they're tying it to job creation taxes many times, and if those jobs aren't created, they do a clawback and get it back, okay? So I do think you're seeing that, but yes, they can't be handed out like candy, especially in the good areas, all right? And again, we don't have a 500,000-foot building just sitting there empty if an Amazon or somebody else wanted to come here. Nobody's going to take that risk. We have one developer in town, Daimler, I think has built 3 or 4 spec buildings, and every one of them got snapped up like that. They obviously have deep pockets and afford to take that risk. Almost nobody else is building spec. And again, I don't blame them. Industrial is a different question. The demand is so high for industrial that if you built 4 million square foot buildings, they'd probably get leased in a very short amount of time.
So as a city resident, how do I disagree with the City Council?
Most people don't communicate. You got to communicate. You may notice I wrote a letter to the editor 2 weeks ago in the paper about something I stood up and believed in. So most people don't. You got to stand up for what you believe in. You call them, you write them, you show up at their doorstep on there. I think that's what it takes. One more. John.
You hear a lot about a global economy and the coronavirus. How is that going to impact commercial real estate in general?
Well, obviously our world's changed upside down in the last 2 or 3 weeks because of that. As somebody that goes to Miami a lot and is going to California in 2 weeks, 2 markets that are heavily Asian, it's going to affect it a lot because the amount of travel and the trickle-down effect. All of a sudden, hotel rooms get not booked, those restaurants don't get filled, those cruises, don't get. It's definitely going to have a major effect, so we're all praying that it's not going to last, very long. For example, when I was in Florida, they built a fast line railroad that Virgin Railroad just bought, and man, do I wish we had that here. on there, and they're going to already take it up to Orlando to Disney because they want all those tourists, a lot from China, to come on down to Fort Lauderdale and West Palm into Miami. So yes, I see it affecting us, hopefully on the short term. Jim?
Greg, if when we allocate and have real estate for retirement income, looking for safety, is there an area of real estate that you think is better than the other sectors of real estate that you would want to rely on for income?
Okay, so as I said, I read about a half a dozen real estate investment magazines, so I've looked at every one of them, and I own a lot myself, and being not risk tolerant. Apartments, what we call value-add apartments, are very safe. It's one of the lowest common denominators. People are always going to need a place to live. The new stuff that's being built is very expensive, is a different thing. So if you can buy a 10, 20, 30-year-old apartment and fix it up, you're probably pretty safe. A mobile home park, which again, Sam Zell, I forget who asked that question, is probably the safest, but it's very hard to get a mobile park zone today, almost impossible on there, but that's going to be there. Industrial for the right size is pretty safe. Self-storage units are very safe and in very high, big demand now. My personal preference, I mean, I've got probably 80% of my investment for real estate is in what we call value-add apartments, and they've been 20 years I've been investing in that, and they've been a gold mine on there. I think I've overshot my time. I'm happy to stay later afterwards. Thank you, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I think our cards and everything's on there, and our website, just shankcompany.com. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you for promoting the importance of the strategic plan. So I hope the rest of you will help the strategic plan committee kind of wrap it up as we finish this up over the next couple of months. I want to thank you all for coming today as well. We look forward to seeing you again next week when our speakers will be Eric Birkland and Sean Hendricks from the Ohio Manufacturers Association. So thank you all for coming.